and is still there, labouring in the fields. And she should be and is an inspiration to all of us, not just to get in there behind our national commitment to compassion around the world, but to go one step further. As each of you contemplate your futures, think about spending some time in one of these projects around the world. I know many of you are already deeply connected with individual projects. I think it's transformative of a person's life to go out there and to be at the coalface of changing opportunities for people who have none and creating some for them. And I think that's my second message to you, which is, as you come to the end of your university studies, and for those of you who are already into your 7th year of trying to complete a 3-year degree, I'm sorry, that obviously doesn't happen at Sydney University, is think about some time out. Think about working on such projects. Through the budget, what we've also done is provided funding for the Australian Civilian Corps. This is also going to be a register of Australians with professional qualifications so that they can go out and work in difficult humanitarian circumstances around the world in their civilian capacities. And we're going to launch that very soon. The funding for it is already in the budget. That's one vehicle that you can use, quite apart from what you do within your individual organisations and associations. So that's my second message for you today. The third is that around the world, we now have a voice on these questions. 5 or 10 years ago we didn't much, now we do, as a nation. What I find inspiring is, as I travel the world as Australia's Foreign Minister, is people have begun to notice that we're out there making a difference. This year we've increased the aid budget by something in the order of $486 million. The total aid budget now is $4.9 billion. When I was elected as Prime Minister, it was 3.2. We've increased the aid budget in just over 3 years by 50%. The last time that we're anywhere near the current proportion of GNI that we have towards aid was 25 years ago. And so what we've seen is this huge dip, and we're coming out of it. And there's a long way to go. And notwithstanding the achievements of this most recent budget, we still find ourselves in the bottom half of the OECD countries in terms of the percentage of GNI being dedicated to international development assistance. But what I find encouraging around the world is that people who would once almost walk to the other side of the street in international meetings rather than engage you because they knew that Australia wasn't pulling its weight, now greet you with open arms and say, hey, you're now part of the solution. And whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the other international financial institutions, whether it's the international private aid agencies, the international NGOs, whether it's the World Food Programme, UNHCR, IOM, UNICEF and the rest, we now have increasingly a place of respect at the table because we are seen legitimately now as wanting to be part of the solution, not just part of the rolling commentariat of the problem, on the problem. Let me give you one example of what's going on in Libya at the moment. One of the things that we've increased in the aid budget is the humanitarian budget, because if you've noticed of late, disasters are occurring of one type or another with great frequency, either man-made or natural. Libya forms in the first category. You may or may not be aware that Australia right now, after the United States and the European Union, is the third largest global contributor to the humanitarian effort in Libya. Third largest. Libya, people say, is quite a ways away. Well, it is. But I'm actually proud of the fact that there you have a whole group of people in a country striving for political and democratic change, who are in the midst of a civil war, whose lives are at risk every day, being blown apart every day by Gaddafi's air force and by his artillery, that we're in there in an act of global humanitarian solidarity with them. You're also interested to know that they know it. I met just last week in Rome with the interim Prime Minister of the Transitional National Council, Libya. His first point was, you guys are the world's third largest donors. Thank you. And what's that mean on the ground? What it means is that when the IOM, the International Organisation of Migration, which does the emergency transport lifts for people in dire straits in the world to get them out of physical danger, they ring me up and say, we've just run out of money and we've got X thousand people waiting on the docks at Misurata, can you help us? And we're in a position to say, yes, we can. When the international director of the UNHCR rings up and says, our camps on the borders of Tunisia and Libya don't have enough to provide basic shelter and basic food and basic water in the weeks ahead, what can you do? And can you help us? We can now say, yes, we can. This is a very good thing, but it's all made possible because we've created a political consensus in this country, which occasionally frays at the edges, to provide resources for things like international humanitarian assistance, which we didn't have before. So we can confidently say yes. Let me give you one other example.